a beautiful picture. The gorgeous Stephen. Do you know what? It's so fantastic because I've known you from teenage years. We were playing music and all that kind of
back
stuff.
In early 80s.
And I always love it that, you know, you see people around, you don't necessarily hang out with them still, but it's lovely when just something pops up on your radar. You think, oh, that's Stephen. Here you are. I just noticed on Amazon, you have the Elder Tower, which I think came out on 4th of May. Is that the
4th of May,
right.
yeah.
Has that been a long dream? Had you been plotting this? Obviously it takes a while to write, but had you been plotting such a move in your life early on? Or?
Yeah, I've been writing for quite a while.
Okay.
I've had a number of short stories and poems and things like that published, but that book in particular has sort of been floating around in my mind for a while.
Well, we should say, I know it opens with you know, how to commit an act of terror, and you've got this guy's on his bus from College Green. He's going up Nassau Street. He's thinking of the impact of he's going to have. It's quite I don't know whether this all comes from curiosity, whether you've got a bit of a sick mind. I don't know exactly. Because we should explain, of course, the Elder Tower being a reference to Dominic Burke is the main guy. He's talking about his mom May and the fact that she has decided to sort of get an army of elders who will basically go kamikaze to finally get noticed, and they cause all sorts of you know, obviously kind of terror really from the point of view that who knows when or how they're going to strike. Where did that come from?
I suppose it's because the old are so marginalised, you know. We sort of tuck them away in nursing homes that we don't even notice them on the street. We kind of notice them when they're driving too slowly in front of us.
Well, sometimes you do notice them though. They're here. They're only here for a visit though. We're fine. We'll be all right. We'll be fine. Now I know that I read one of the quotes was there was a sweet quote from, and I stupidly forgot my notes. Is it William Peterson?
Phil Patterson, yeah.
Phil Patterson, close enough. And the quote was, I don't want to mangle it. He had a great quote on your book.
Oh yeah, he was very nice. He said it's a cross between Swift's A Modest Proposal and the Bunny Suicides.
Right.
And the sort of the Bunny Suicides part is because what old people start doing to get noticed is they start killing themselves in public.
Nice.
In ever more inventive ways, trying to effectively hold the population to ransom.
Right.
And obviously the chance to write a satire about something like that, you kind of have to stretch it out as you know, to go as far to the extreme as you can. And that was kind of the fun of writing it.
Well, the black comedy of that, I don't know whether you had to sort of give yourself limitations, because it's kind of an endless, once you get into that black comedy of how inventive can I be here and how much can I get away with, maybe, I don't know. I don't know if that was one of the toughest parts, was finding the dark humour without sort of just tipping it over into...
It's a good question. It still has to be believable. Right. You know, I mean, you can sort of appeal to that competitive instinct in people, you know, as they try and outdo each other with each successive suicide, but it still has to be something that realistically could take place.
Right. So, would that take research? I guess you kind of, there's certain logic to just what a person can do, but I know that sometimes you just want to make sure it all adds up. I don't know if you had to look into actual deaths and figure out.
I did, and one of the things that actually struck me was the high incidence of suicide among old people. There's a higher rate of suicide among the elderly than there is among young people, and we know that suicide is one of the highest killers of young people in our society. But the old are actually much more prone, because in many cases they just feel hopeless.
Right. Because I'm always amazed by these. There's an actor, he was 96 when he won an Oscar, or was nominated for an Oscar for The Straight Story, the David Lynch film. I know his first name was Richard, I think it's Fontaine, his surname. But he committed suicide at 96 and he'd just been nominated for an Oscar. So, you know, you kind of forget, of course, at any point in life, these things overwhelm you, these moments happen. So the idea that the elderly are any different than young people, that there is that need to be alive, basically, as soon as it's not there.
It's true, isn't it? I mean, one of the things that sort of struck me is that, you know, we ignore them, but the society that we live in with all the benefits we have was actually created by them. And I don't think we recognise that debt.
Sure. Now, with the kind of coming together of the book itself, I mean, is this it's a tough world to be a writer. I don't know whether it's sort of, you know, it's easier now that there's an awful lot of smaller, you know, online printers, and this is Oyster Books. I think it's manufactured in the US. I mean, was that a struggle? I mean,
it's hard. I mean, what I'd say to anyone who's writing is get an agent. You know, do your best to try and get an agent. I have a good agent in London who's fairly well connected, and that makes a difference. But the reality is, there's also that openness now. Anybody can publish. You know, if somebody wants to self-publish, there's an awful lot of avenues to do that as well. Right. You know, and Amazon, someone like that who has a global reach, is letting small presses get a broader audience as well.
Right. I mean, your own kind of path to this, because as I said, I hadn't really known that you were in this world. is it like 10 years? Is it 20 years? I don't know how long this has sort of been a bug.
I suppose as long as I can remember. You know,
okay.
like most people probably just started in school.
Right.
You know, sitting down the back of the class, jotting away or scribbling on something rather than paying attention.
Right. And were there references like as if we're getting, you know, kind of you're getting quoted, you know, with the bunny suicides and all on the jacket sleeve. Would you recognise certain influences yourself? Would you be happy to say, well, these are certain people, certain authors that have inspired all this? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I read a lot, you know, and I did English in college, and I used to teach English as a subject, so I suppose I've been reading anything and everything for a long, long time. But, you know, writers like Richard Ford I really admire, you know, a lot of sort of modern American writers as well. But you know, yeah. I say to my daughter, she's doing creative writing in college in the States, just keep reading, it really doesn't matter what.
Yeah. And of course, you want to hit that sweet spot where, like Stephen King seems to have that glorious sort of sweet spot where he is incredibly popular, but he's also very well respected. I mean, his work is regarded, highly regarded, and you know, when you go into the popular side and you are popular, it's often you're basically dismissed by critics, and you get that sort of idea that you're just an airport kind of novelist, and that's probably the goal. Really, is just to find that you're genuinely in love with what you're doing, but it has a reach, it has a. I mean, would you think at all commercially? Could you?
I suppose I can think of a couple of writers like that. I mean, Stephen King's book on writing is brilliant. Anybody who's thinking of becoming a writer should read it. It's terrific. Yeah. But then I think of writers like John Connolly, you know, who writes beautifully. I mean, he's a fantastic prose writer, but he's still largely ignored because he's seen as a writer of commercial fiction. Okay. I think, you know, books like The Black Angel are as good as anything that's been written by a Booker Prize winner over the last 10 years.
Right. Now, I'm thinking of your family, and you've got well, I know Tony and I know Catherine. They're cultural. They've no cultural life whatsoever. They've no artistic talent. I think Countdown is the high point of their cultural week. I've been wondering where all this came from. Was it a family? I'm only messing, of course. But was it a family kind of thing? Where was there? I don't know if there were other writers. If there was kind of. I guess it was a creative family because I knew you through music, and I know you played music at the time. So,
very badly a long time ago. And you were a damn good drummer, if I recall.
Well, I think we're all failed musicians at some level, yeah. But fun. It's always fun, yeah.
No, my dad wrote a bit. My dad wrote a bit, but outside of that, probably not. You know, people have different creative pursuits, I suppose.
Right. So was it? I don't know. It was. You can sort of pinpoint how it just happened to be your kick. Whether it was, I guess, maybe school opened it up, or
friends in school. I think back as some of the friends I hung out with were interested in writing as well, and it was just something you did, something that killed time or, you know, sparked your interest.
I would say that, you know, another dream of a lot of book writers, not necessarily always, but just that it gets adapted to, you know, movie or TV and all that. This seems to have already a rich kind of visual possibility, or a rich cinematic kind of sensibility that this would be. And it sounds silly, but when you have a simple concept, it sometimes fires the imagination, and it would kind of fire a studio head. I don't know if that's.
I'd love to see if there's an appetite for that. I mean, my agent said the same. He said it's quite cinematic. Yeah. You know, the notion of having old people offing themselves strangely appeals to that sort of visual imagination. But I don't know, Paul. I mean, if someone was interested, that would be great.
What's great too with the older actors is that every week you can say you paid them already, and just convince them that they've already been paid that week, and that, you know, you just wouldn't have to pay anybody. I think you get that with the older. So
method acting for suicide. I wonder.
So I don't know what if you've got immediate plans now, whether you're always kind of thinking about the next book, or whether you I don't know if you dare make a plan, because who knows.
Well, I'm actually working on the next one, and it's set in Greystones.
Ah, wow. So it's a horror. Mixed with comedy, of course, and a musical. Yeah, I think it'll have to be a musical, really. Well, we know that it's on Amazon. I don't know whether you'd hope to have it in bookshops. That's a kind of a tough one, I guess, to sort of physically put it out there. It's so much easier for people just to grab it online.
It is. It's hard to get distribution deals outside of the places like the States. But as I said, it is up on Amazon. You know, if people are interested, it's there.
It's only $4.99, you know, for the paperback, and that's great, and obviously cheaper again on Kindle. Well, we put the link in, and we read the opening is up. The opening kind of paragraph is up there. It's great. I mean, it just sort of caught me, and I'm gonna buy it, just as an old friend, but as well as, more importantly, I just think, I want to read the rest of this, see what happens. But yeah, congratulations, man. That's great.
Thanks very much, Paul.
Cheers.
Really